Sophia's breath caught in her throat as she discovered the abandoned pregnant mare trembling in the desert, its emaciated body bearing the brand of the region's most ruthless millionaire. Standing before the frightened animal, she made a vow that would put everything she had at risk. No force on earth would separate them now, not even the man who thought his wealth gave him the right to discard lives. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. Don Esteban Valverde's estate was a symbol of power and wealth, accumulated over years of ruthless business dealings. Marble stables, manicured green pastures, and a staff dedicated exclusively to the care of his prized horses formed part of his equestrian empire. Among all his horses, one stood out, Aurora, a magnificent chestnut mare whose graceful bearing was worthy of royalty. Her mane rippled in the wind like a banner, and her movements on the track left spectators speechless. Aurora wasn't just a horse. She was Don Esteban's pride. In every race, the millionaire wagered not only money, but his prestige. The golden trophies adorning his office reflected Aurora's victories, testaments to her speed and stamina. However, fate had other plans. One morning, Esteban's stable manager approached with troubling news. "Sir," the veterinarian confirmed it, "Aurora is pregnant." Esteban's face darkened. A pregnant mare couldn't race, couldn't bring him the glory and profit he expected. "How long until she can compete again?" he demanded, his voice cold. "At least a year, sir. She'll need time to deliver and recover. Even then, her racing days might be over. Motherhood changes horses, affects their speed and focus." The millionaire's jaw tightened. He wasn't a man accustomed to spending money on anything that didn't generate returns. To him, a horse incapable of racing was like an engineless car, useless. That night, while the estate employees retired to rest, Esteban made his decision. He summoned two of his most loyal workers, men who knew how to follow orders without asking questions. "I want Aurora taken far from here. I don't care where, but I don't want her on my property," he ordered, his voice firm. The men exchanged uncomfortable glances but didn't dare question him. Working for Don Esteban meant obeying without protest. So, past midnight, they drove the truck to the main stable where Aurora rested. The mare, exhausted from her pregnancy, raised her head at the sound of the doors. There was something in her eyes that conveyed a mixture of confusion and sadness, as if sensing what was to come. The men, unable to look her directly in the eye, led her carefully toward the truck. One of them gently stroked her neck before loading her. "Forgive me, friend," he whispered. The journey was long and silent. The truck traveled lonely roads, moving away from the estate and into increasingly inhospitable terrain. Finally, near a creek in the midst of a desolate landscape, they stopped. They carefully unloaded Aurora, but without saying another word. When they started the engine to leave, Aurora tried to follow them, limping visibly from the weight of her pregnancy, but the effort was futile. The men disappeared into the darkness, leaving the mare alone under a cloud-covered sky. At dawn, the landscape surrounding her was as unfamiliar as it was inhospitable. Aurora dragged herself with effort toward the creek to drink water. Her reflection on the surface returned the image of a horse that was no longer the champion everyone admired. Her pregnant belly was heavy and each step was a struggle, but instinct pushed her to keep moving. There was no food, no shelter, and all that accompanied her was the echo of the small creek. Thus, the majestic purebred mare that had been the pride of a millionaire was reduced to a vulnerable being, abandoned to her fate in a world that seemed to have forgotten her. The sun had barely begun to tint the hills golden when Sophia, a young woman of 19, left her small adobe house located on the edge of a valley. Her home was humble, with weathered walls and tile roofs that barely withstood the rains, but it was full of warmth despite the difficulties. Sophia always maintained a smile on her face. She had grown up surrounded by animals, and since she was little, her father had taught her that every living being deserved respect and care. Although her father was no longer with her, she continued practicing those values every day. That morning, Sophia decided to go to the nearby creek to collect water. Her donkey, Bruno, accompanied her patiently, carrying 2 empty jugs on his sides. Sophia, with her brown hair gathered in a braid and her somewhat worn blue dress, walked barefoot on the dirt path. By her side ran Luna, a mixed-breed dog with large ears and a curious gaze. As she advanced, something caught her attention. In the distance, by the trees that bordered the creek, she spotted a dark figure moving with difficulty. At first, she thought it could be an injured deer, but as she approached, she realized it was a horse, a pregnant mare. A horse? What's it doing here alone? Sophia murmured, stopping a few meters away. The animal was large, with a beautiful chestnut coat that stood out even under the dim morning light. Its mane was tangled, and its body covered with dust and small wounds. Although its bearing was imposing, it was noticeably exhausted. The mare's belly was swollen with pregnancy, and she limped visibly while trying to drink water from the creek. Sophia felt a knot in her stomach. She had seen injured horses before, but never one so majestic and in such a deplorable state. She took a step toward her, but the mare suddenly raised her head and backed away with a weak whinny, as if fearing harm. "Easy, easy," Sophia said softly, raising her hands to show she had no ill intentions. "I won't hurt you." Luna, the little dog, moved forward and barked a couple of times, but Sophia stopped her. "Luna, don't scare her," she ordered in a whisper. Sophia remained still, carefully observing the mare. There was something in her eyes that deeply moved her, not just physical pain, but a kind of sadness that seemed to come from her soul. She decided she couldn't leave her there. "Someone must have abandoned you. But that doesn't mean your story ends here," she told her, as if the animal could understand. With slow movements, Sophia took a piece of bread from her bag that she had brought for breakfast. She extended it toward the mare, maintaining her distance so as not to frighten her. The animal sniffed the air, hesitating, but hunger finally overcame her. She took a couple of wobbly steps toward Sophia and carefully took the bread. "That's it, girl. You're safe now," Sophia said with a gentle smile. Once she managed to get closer, Sophia examined the injured leg. Although she wasn't a veterinarian, she knew enough to notice that the mare needed urgent help. She looked toward the creek and then at Bruno, who waited patiently with the empty jugs. "It's going to be difficult, but I can't leave you here," she said with determination. Sophia improvised a sort of halter with the rope she had brought for Bruno, and with great patience guided the mare away from the creek. The animal limped with each step, but seemed to trust Sophia enough to follow her. The return journey to the ranch was slow. Bruno walked in front with the jugs while Luna trotted to the side, watching over the injured mare. Throughout the journey, Sophia spoke in a low voice, trying to reassure the animal. "I'll call you Aurora," she said suddenly, remembering the stories her father told about horses as fast as the wind. "It's a good name, don't you think?" When they arrived at the small ranch, Sophia led Aurora to the improvised stable where she normally kept Bruno. Though the space was limited, it was clean and had enough straw for the mare to rest. Bruno, generous as always, gave up his place without complaint, while Sophia brought fresh water and a blanket to cover Aurora. The young woman spent hours tending to the mare's swollen belly with warm water and herbs she had learned to use from her grandmother. She cleaned Aurora's wounds with delicacy. The horse whinnied softly at the contact, but didn't resist. She seemed to understand that Sophia only wanted to help her. "I don't know where you came from, but no one's going to abandon you here," she said while stroking the mare's neck. That night, as the moon illuminated the valley, Aurora finally lay down on the straw, exhausted but with some peace. Sophia, sitting beside her, felt a mixture of sadness and hope. She knew that caring for a pregnant horse in that condition wouldn't be easy, especially with her limited resources, but she couldn't turn her back on the animal. "I promise I'll do everything I can for you," she whispered before turning off the oil lamp. As the wind whispered through the trees, Aurora closed her eyes, feeling for the first time in days that she wasn't alone. Days passed slowly at the small ranch, and each one meant a challenge for both Sophia and Aurora. The horse that had arrived weak and fearful was beginning to adapt to Sophia's constant care. Her belly remained swollen, a reminder of the new life growing inside her, but the calm environment and Sophia's affection were beginning to restore something she had lost: hope. Every morning, Sophia woke up before dawn to tend to Aurora. The routine was demanding: clean the wounds, apply poultices with herbs she collected from nearby hills, and make sure the mare ate enough to regain her strength. Resources were scarce, but she always found a way to care for her animals. "Come on, Aurora. Today's a good day to try walking a bit more," she would say while holding the rope she had converted into an improvised halter. At first, attempts to make the horse move beyond the stable were frustrating. Aurora, though willing, would stop after a few meters, visibly limping. But Sophia didn't give up. Patient, she spoke to her tenderly, stroked her, and encouraged her to take one more step. "You know, Dad used to say that horses are like us. They need someone to believe in them to overcome fear," she told her while guiding her toward the nearby creek. "And I believe in you, Aurora." With time, those short walks began to bear fruit. The swelling in Aurora's belly became more pronounced as her pregnancy progressed, but she was regaining some strength. Though she still limped, there was a different gleam in her eyes, a spark that reflected the impact of Sophia's care and affection. One afternoon, while collecting firewood to heat water, Sophia stopped to observe Aurora from a distance. The mare was alongside Luna and Bruno, who seemed to accept her as part of their small family. The young woman couldn't help but smile. Although she knew the road to delivery would be challenging, Aurora's progress was proof that the effort was worth it. However, caring for Aurora wasn't simple. The costs of food and medicine were beginning to weigh on Sophia's pocket. Her only source of income was selling eggs and milk at the village market, and with winter approaching, she knew sales would decrease. "I'm going to need help to get through this, but I won't give up on you," she told the horse one night while brushing her with an old wooden comb. Aurora, as if understanding Sophia's words, moved her ears toward her and looked at her with those deep eyes that touched her so much. Sophia let out a small laugh. "Are you telling me you trust me? All right, but I also need you to do your part." The weeks continued, and the bond between them strengthened every day. Sophia talked to Aurora as if she were a close friend, telling her about her dreams and worries. "You know, I've always wanted to have my own animal refuge, a place where no horse, dog, or donkey is rejected. It would be nice, don't you think?" she said while stroking her under the mane. Aurora whinnied softly as if responding. One day, during one of their walks to the creek, Sophia encountered Doña Clara, an older woman from the village who usually stopped by the ranch to buy fresh milk. Seeing Aurora, Clara was impressed by her bearing, even in her state of recovery. "What a beautiful horse you have, Sophia. Where did you get her from?" Clara asked, approaching cautiously. "I found her abandoned near the creek. She was injured and pregnant, but she's gradually improving," Sophia responded with a mixture of pride and modesty. Clara observed the horse attentively. "This is no ordinary horse. This animal is of fine blood, I'm sure. Look at her body, her muscles. Even now that she's thinner. Haven't you thought that she might have belonged to someone important?" The question left Sophia thoughtful. She had never considered that Aurora might have been more than an abandoned horse. Her majestic bearing had always seemed special to her. But she never imagined the mare might have had a different past from any other injured animal she had rescued. Whoever her former owner was, they left her behind as if she were worthless, she said firmly. Now she's here, and that's all that matters. Clara nodded but couldn't help but feel curious. If you need help with her, let me know. My nephew works in the capital at a place where they care for horses like this one. Maybe he can give you some advice. Sophia thanked her for the offer, though in her heart she felt that Aurora needed nothing more than her care and affection. For her, the horse wasn't just an animal. She was a reflection of her own struggle to move forward despite difficulties. That night, as the wind whispered through the trees and the stars shone in the sky, Sophia sat next to Aurora, resting her head against the mare's side. I don't know what your life was like before you came here, but I promise you'll never be alone again, she said in a low voice. The horse, as if understanding, gently tilted her head toward her, closing her eyes with a tranquility she hadn't felt in a long time. Meanwhile, in one of Don Esteban Valverde's luxurious properties, a man accustomed to getting what he wanted regardless of the cost, chaos reigned. Esteban, 47, owned a successful chain of real estate and agricultural companies, and his fortune had made him an influential figure in the most exclusive circles of the region. However, behind his elegant facade hid a ruthless man who valued everything solely based on its utility and benefit. That afternoon, while reviewing some contracts in his spacious office with walls decorated in wood and equestrian trophies, Esteban was interrupted by his foreman, Hernan, a robust man with a serious expression who seemed uncomfortable upon entering. "Mr. Valverde, we have a problem. We haven't found the mare," Hernan announced, his voice tense with apprehension. Esteban dropped his stylographic pen forcefully onto the table and looked up, furrowing his brow. "What do you mean you haven't found Aurora? What kind of incompetence is this?" "We've searched all around the estate, sir. The last we know is that after the mare was left near the creek, she must have wandered off. We thought she wouldn't survive long in those conditions with her pregnancy." Esteban rose from his chair, his face reddened with anger. "Aurora is not just any horse, Hernan. She's the most expensive animal I've bought. Do you have any idea what that mare represents for me? My reputation is at stake." Hernan tried to calm the situation. "Sir, it's likely someone has found her. We can continue searching in nearby communities." "Listen to me, Hernan," interrupted Esteban with a threatening tone. "That horse bears my name and my brand. I won't allow her to end up in the hands of just anyone. Do whatever necessary to recover her, and if you can't, don't bother coming back." Meanwhile, at Sophia's ranch, the days continued to pass with a peaceful rhythm that contrasted sharply with the growing storm at Esteban Valverde's estate. Every morning, Sophia woke up with the first light of dawn to tend to Aurora. The mare's pregnancy was advancing, and with each passing day, her belly grew larger. Despite her condition, Aurora was showing remarkable improvement under Sophia's dedicated care. The morning air was crisp and clean as Sophia made her way to the small stable. She carried a bucket of fresh water and some feed she had managed to trade for, with extra eggs at the local market. The sound of her approaching footsteps caused Aurora to lift her head, her ears perking up in recognition. The mare's eyes followed Sophia as she entered the stable, a soft whinny escaping from her as a greeting. "Good morning, beautiful," Sophia said, placing the bucket down and reaching out to stroke Aurora's neck. "How are you feeling today?" The mare nuzzled Sophia's hand, a gesture that had become familiar between them. Sophia checked Aurora's condition carefully, paying special attention to her swollen belly. "The little one seems to be doing well," she murmured, placing a gentle hand on Aurora's side, feeling the subtle movement within. After ensuring Aurora had eaten and was comfortable, Sophia led her outside for their daily walk. These walks had become an essential part of their routine, helping the mare maintain her strength for the upcoming birth. Today, Sophia decided to take her a bit farther than usual, down to the creek where they had first met. The path was lined with wildflowers that had begun to bloom with the warming weather. Sophia watched as Aurora occasionally stopped to nibble at patches of grass, her movements more fluid than they had been when Sophia first found her. There was a grace returning to the mare, a glimpse of the magnificent animal she must have been before her abandonment. "You know," Sophia said as they walked side by side, "sometimes I wonder what your life was like before. Were you happy? Did someone love you?" Aurora looked at her, those intelligent eyes seeming to hold answers to questions Sophia couldn't fully articulate. The mare gently bumped her head against Sophia's shoulder, as if to say that none of that mattered now. They had each other. When they reached the creek, Sophia allowed Aurora to drink while she sat on a nearby rock, watching the peaceful scene. The sound of water flowing over stones created a soothing melody that matched the serenity of the moment. Sophia had grown to love these quiet times with Aurora, away from the concerns of daily life. "In a few weeks you'll have your foal," Sophia said, gazing at the mare's profile against the backdrop of hills and sky. "I've never helped deliver a horse before, but I promise I'll do everything I can to make it safe for both of you." As they made their way back to the ranch, Sophia noticed Aurora was moving more slowly, her breathing slightly labored. Concern flickered across the young woman's face. The pregnancy was taking its toll, and Sophia knew she needed to be prepared for any complications that might arise. That evening, as the sun set in brilliant hues of orange and purple, Sophia sat outside her small house, mending some clothes while keeping an eye on the stable. Luna lay at her feet, occasionally lifting her head when a nightbird called or when the wind rustled the trees. The peaceful scene belied the worry that had taken root in Sophia's heart. She had barely enough savings to last the month, let alone afford a veterinarian if complications arose during Aurora's delivery. The mare's condition required better nutrition than Sophia could consistently provide, and the makeshift stable, while clean and safe, wasn't ideal for a birth. Sophia sighed, setting down her mending to rub her tired eyes. Despite the challenges, giving up wasn't an option. Aurora and her unborn foal had become family to her, and Sophia would do whatever was necessary to protect them. The following day brought an unexpected visitor to the ranch. Tomas, a neighbor who lived a few miles away, arrived with his mule cart loaded with hay and some feed. "I heard from Doña Clara that you've taken in a pregnant mare," he said by way of greeting. "Thought you might need some extra supplies." Sophia's eyes widened in surprise and gratitude. "Tomas, I don't know what to say. This is incredibly generous." The older man shrugged, his weathered face creasing into a smile. "Your father would have done the same for any of us. Besides, I've got more than I need right now." Together they unloaded the supplies, storing them in the small shed adjacent to the stable. Aurora watched from her enclosure, her curious gaze following their movements. "That's quite a horse," Tomas remarked, pausing to study Aurora. Doña Clara wasn't exaggerating. "She's definitely of fine breeding." Sophia nodded, pride evident in her voice. "She's strong too. Despite everything she's been through, she keeps fighting." Tomas approached the mare cautiously, extending a hand for her to sniff. Aurora regarded him warily at first, but then allowed him to stroke her neck. "She's got good instincts," he observed. "Knows who to trust." Before leaving, Tomas hesitated, his expression growing serious. "Sophia, there's something else you should know. There are strangers asking around the village about a missing mare, wealthy-looking men from the city." Sophia felt a chill run down her spine despite the warmth of the day. "What did they say?" They're looking for a pregnant chestnut mare that belongs to some rich landowner, offering a reward for information. Tomas glanced at Aurora, then back at Sophia. I didn't say anything, but others might not be so discreet. After Tomas left, Sophia couldn't shake the unease his warning had stirred. She spent the rest of the day close to Aurora, as if her presence alone could ward off any threat. That night, she even dragged her small cot into the stable, unwilling to leave the mare alone. In the darkness, Sophia whispered to Aurora, her voice barely audible above the night sounds. I won't let anyone take you away. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Miles away, in the opulent office of his hacienda, Esteban Valverde stared at the reports his men had brought back. They had been searching the surrounding villages for days, following any lead, no matter how tenuous. So far, they had found nothing concrete, but rumors were beginning to circulate about a young woman who had taken in an injured mare. This girl, Sophia, Esteban said, tapping a finger against the paper. What do we know about her? Hernan, who stood rigidly before the desk, cleared his throat. Not much, sir. She lives alone on a small ranch inherited from her father. Makes a modest living selling eggs and milk. Known in the village for taking in stray or injured animals. Esteban's lips curved into a cold smile. Ah, a bleeding heart. Those are always the easiest to deal with. He rose from his chair, walking to the window that overlooked his vast estate. I want you to visit this ranch, Hernan. See if my mare is there. If she is, don't do anything yet. Just report back to me. And if she is there, sir, what then? Esteban turned, his expression hardening. Then I'll handle it personally. Aurora is valuable breeding stock, especially now that she's carrying a foal. I won't allow some peasant girl to keep what's rightfully mine. The following morning dawned gray and overcast, a fitting backdrop for the anxiety that had settled over Sophia. She went about her chores mechanically, her mind preoccupied with Tomas's warning. Aurora seemed to sense her unease, following Sophia with her eyes as she moved around the stable, occasionally nickering softly as if to reassure her. Sophia was in the small vegetable garden behind her house when she heard the sound of approaching hoofbeats. Straightening, she shaded her eyes against the muted sunlight, making out the figures of two riders approaching along the dirt road that led to her ranch. Her heart began to pound, and she quickly wiped her hands on her apron, casting a glance toward the stable where Aurora was resting. The riders drew closer, their mounts kicking up dust from the dry road. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with a stern face, seemed to be in charge. His companion was younger, with a nervous air about him. Both were dressed in the style of ranch hands, but their clothes were of better quality than most workers could afford. Sophia took a deep breath, steeling herself for the confrontation she sensed was coming. Luna, ever protective, came to stand beside her, hackles slightly raised as she watched the strangers approach. Stay calm, Sophia whispered, as much to herself as to the dog. We'll get through this. The men reined in their horses a few yards from where Sophia stood, their gazes immediately sweeping over the small ranch, taking in the modest house, the stable, the small corral. The older man dismounted first, his movements confident and practiced. He approached Sophia with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Good morning, señorita. My name is Hernan. I work for Don Esteban Valverde. He paused as if expecting the name to impress her. When Sophia remained silent, he continued. We're looking for a mare that went missing from the Don's estate. A chestnut mare, pregnant. We have reason to believe she might be in this area. Sophia felt her heart race, but she kept her expression neutral. She had expected this moment, yet hearing the name of the powerful landowner still sent a chill through her. Luna pressed against her leg, sensing her tension. I've heard of Don Valverde, Sophia replied carefully. but I'm afraid I can't help you with your search." Hernan's smile remained fixed in place, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "We've been asking around, Señorita. Several people mentioned you found an injured horse not too long ago. A mare, they said." Sophia met his gaze steadily. "I've taken in many animals over the years. Perhaps you wouldn't mind if we had a look around then?" Hernan gestured toward the stable, just to be certain. It wasn't really a question, and Sophia knew it. The younger man had already dismounted and was tying their horses to a nearby post. Sophia felt a surge of protectiveness rise within her. She had nursed Aurora back to health, had spent countless nights by her side. The mare trusted her. The thought of these men taking her away to the man who had abandoned her was unbearable. "The animal I found was abandoned," Sophia said firmly. "Left to die in the desert, pregnant and injured. What kind of owner would do such a thing?" Hernan's smile faltered. "The circumstances of the mare's disappearance are not your concern, Señorita. If she belongs to Don Valverde, she must be returned." Sophia stood her ground. "I found her half dead. She was suffering. If someone treated her that way, they don't deserve to have her back." "The law doesn't concern itself with deserving," Hernan replied, his tone hardening. "Property is property." "She's not property," Sophia retorted, her voice rising slightly. "She's a living being who was left to die with her unborn foal. I saved her life." The younger man shifted uncomfortably, but Hernan remained impassive. "Your compassion is admirable but misplaced. Now, if you'll excuse us." He started toward the stable, but Sophia moved quickly to block his path. Luna growled softly beside her. "You can't just come onto my land and take what's mine," Sophia said, hands clenched into fists at her sides. Hernan's facade of politeness slipped, revealing the steely determination beneath. "Don't make this difficult, girl. Don Valverde is not a man you want as an enemy." Sophia was about to respond when a soft whinny came from the stable. All eyes turned to see Aurora standing in the doorway, her pregnant belly prominent, her eyes alert, as she watched the scene unfold. Even in her condition, there was a regal quality to her bearing that couldn't be denied. "There she is," the younger man murmured. "That's Aurora, no doubt about it." Hernan nodded, a look of satisfaction crossing his face. "Well, that settles it. The mare belongs to Don Valverde. You can see his brand on her flank." Sophia looked at Aurora, noticing for the first time the small, stylized V that had been obscured by dirt and wounds when she'd found her. The sight of it made her heart sink, but she refused to give up. "She may have his brand, but he abandoned her," Sophia insisted. "She was left to die. That means he gave up any right to her." Hernan's patience was clearly wearing thin. "Listen carefully, because I won't say this again. That mare is worth more than everything you own combined. Don Valverde wants her back, and he will have her back, one way or another. The only question is whether you'll make this easy or difficult for yourself." The threat hung in the air between them. Sophia glanced at Aurora, who had taken a few tentative steps forward, as if sensing the conflict was about her. The mare's eyes were fixed on Sophia, filled with a trust that had been hard-won over weeks of care and gentle handling. "I need to speak with Don Valverde himself," Sophia said finally. "If he wants Aurora back, he should come here and face me directly." Hernan regarded her with a mixture of surprise and grudging respect. "You've got courage, I'll give you that. But courage alone won't help you against Don Valverde." "Nevertheless," Sophia replied, "that's my condition. I won't discuss this further with anyone but him." After a tense moment, Hernan nodded curtly. "As you wish. Don Valverde will be informed of your request." He turned to leave, then paused. "For your sake, I hope you reconsider before he arrives. He's not known for his patience or forgiveness." The two men mounted their horses and departed, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. Sophia watched them go, her heart pounding. Only when they were out of sight did she allow her shoulders to slump, the tension draining from her body, leaving her trembling. Aurora approached, nudging Sophia's shoulder gently with her muzzle. Sophia wrapped her arms around the mare's neck, burying her face in the coarse mane. "What are we going to do?" she whispered. The rest of the day passed in a haze of anxiety. Sophia went through her chores mechanically, her mind racing with possibilities, none of them good. She knew Don Esteban Valverde by reputation, a wealthy, powerful man who always got what he wanted, the kind of man who could crush someone like her without a second thought. As evening approached, Sophia was startled by the sound of a cart arriving. To her relief, it was Thomas, his weathered face creased with concern. "I heard Valverde's men were here," he said without preamble. "What happened?" Sophia recounted the confrontation, her voice steady despite the fear that churned inside her. When she finished, Tomas shook his head grimly. "You've got yourself in a dangerous situation, Sophia. Valverde is not a man to cross." "What choice do I have?" Sophia asked. "I can't just hand Aurora over to someone who abandoned her to die. You should have seen her when I found her, Thomas. She was starving, injured, terrified. No one who would do that to an animal deserves to have her back." Tomas sighed, removing his hat to run a hand through his thinning hair. "I understand, truly I do, but you need to be practical. Valverde has money, influence, the law on his side. What do you have?" Sophia's gaze drifted to the stable where Aurora stood watching them, her intelligent eyes seeming to understand the gravity of the situation. "I have the truth," Sophia said quietly, "and I have her trust." Tomas looked unconvinced, but he nodded slowly. "Then you'll need support. I'll speak with some of the others in the village, people who knew your father who know you. If Valverde is coming, you shouldn't face him alone." Sophia felt a rush of gratitude. "Thank you, Tomas. I don't know what I'd do without your help." After Tomas left, Sophia sat on her small porch, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. Luna lay at her feet, occasionally lifting her head to sniff the night air. From the stable came the soft sounds of Aurora settling down for the night. Sophia tried to imagine what she would say to Don Esteban Valverde when he arrived. How could she make him understand the bond she had formed with Aurora? How could she convince him that the mare belonged with her now? The practical part of her mind whispered that it was hopeless. Valverde would never listen to reason, would never be swayed by appeals to compassion or justice. He would take Aurora by force if necessary, and there was little Sophia could do to stop him. But another part of her refused to give up. Aurora had been abandoned, left to die alone in the desert. Whatever legal claim Valverde might have had, he had forfeited it through his cruelty. The mare trusted Sophia now, depended on her, and soon there would be a foal, a new life that Sophia was determined to protect. As the night deepened, Sophia made her decision. She would not surrender Aurora without a fight. Whatever it took, whatever the cost, she would stand her ground. In the grand hacienda of Don Esteban Valverde, Hernan delivered his report in the opulent study where his employer spent most evenings. The walls were adorned with hunting trophies and expensive artwork, symbols of Valverde's wealth and power. "So, this girl refuses to return my property," Valverde said, swirling brandy in a crystal glass. "And she has the audacity to demand that I come to her personally." Hernan nodded uncomfortably. "She's young, sir, and stubborn. She believes she's in the right because she found Aurora abandoned." Valverde's expression darkened. "Abandoned? Is that the story now?" He set his glass down with a sharp click. "Aurora is a valuable broodmare, especially with the foal she's carrying. I paid good money for her bloodline, and I won't have some peasant girl keeping what's mine." "What would you like me to do, sir?" Valverde considered for a moment. "I'll go myself," as she requested. Sometimes these matters require a personal touch. His lips curved in a cold smile. "Prepare everything for tomorrow morning. I want to resolve this situation once and for all." Dawn broke with a sky painted in shades of gold and crimson, as if the heavens themselves were warning of the confrontation to come. Sophia had barely slept, spending most of the night in the stable with Aurora, whispering reassurances that she didn't entirely believe herself. The mare seemed to sense her anxiety, staying close and occasionally nudging Sophia's shoulder with her muzzle. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the cracks in the stable walls, Sophia began her morning routine with deliberate care. She brushed Aurora's coat until it gleamed, braided sections of her mane, and ensured she had fresh water and the best feed Sophia could provide. If Don Esteban Valverde was coming to see his horse, he would find her well cared for and thriving, despite the cruel abandonment. "You look beautiful," Sophia murmured, stroking Aurora's neck. "No one could look at you now and say you weren't loved." Around mid-morning, Sophia heard the sound of approaching vehicles. Her heart began to race, but she took a deep breath, steadying herself. She stepped out of the stable into the sunlight, Luna at her heels, and watched as a procession of 3 expensive cars made their way down the dusty road toward her ranch. The first to arrive was a sleek black automobile that seemed almost obscenely luxurious against the backdrop of Sophia's modest home. As it came to a stop, the driver hurried around to open the rear door. The man who emerged moved with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to power and deference. Don Esteban Valverde was taller than Sophia had expected, with silver streaks in his dark hair and eyes the color of cold steel. His tailored suit probably cost more than everything Sophia owned combined. Behind him, the other cars stopped, and several men got out, including Hernan and the young man who had accompanied him the day before. Sophia stood her ground as Valverde approached, his gaze taking in the small ranch with obvious disdain before settling on her. Luna growled softly beside her, but Sophia placed a calming hand on the dog's head. "So," Valverde said, his voice smooth and cultured, "you're the girl who has my mare." "My name is Sofia Martinez," she replied evenly. "And yes, I've been caring for the mare you abandoned." Valverde's expression hardened momentarily before he regained his composure. "There seems to be a misunderstanding. Aurora is a valuable animal that went missing from my property. I've come to retrieve her." "There's no misunderstanding," Sophia said. "I found her near death at the creek. She was abandoned, pregnant, and injured. No one who cared for an animal would leave her in such a state." "You presume to know circumstances about which you understand nothing," Valverde replied, his tone sharpening. "The mare is mine, legally and rightfully. I can show you papers proving her ownership if necessary." "Papers don't erase what was done to her," Sophia said. "She trusts me now. She's recovering, preparing to give birth. Taking her away would only cause her more suffering." Valverde studied Sophia with growing irritation. "Your sentimentality is touching but irrelevant. The law is clear. Aurora belongs to me, regardless of how you found her or what condition she was in." "The law may say she's your property," Sophia conceded, "but it doesn't make it right. Some things matter more than legal ownership." A flicker of amusement crossed Valverde's face. "Such as what? Your feelings? Your attachment to an animal that isn't yours? Don't be naive, girl. The world doesn't work that way." Sophia was about to respond when she noticed movement on the road behind Valverde's cars. A procession of carts, trucks, and people on horseback was approaching her ranch. At the head of the group was Tomas, his weathered face set with determination. Valverde turned to follow her gaze, his expression darkening as he saw the villagers arriving. "What is this? Some kind of primitive intimidation tactic?" Sophia felt a surge of gratitude and hope as her neighbors and friends from the village began to gather behind her. Tomas dismounted and came to stand at her side, along with Doña Clara, the blacksmith Rafael, and at least a dozen others. They formed a protective half-circle, their silent presence a powerful statement of solidarity. "These are my friends and neighbors," Sophia said, her voice stronger now. "People who understand what it means to care for an animal, to respect life." Valverde's lips thinned to a hard line as he surveyed the gathered villagers. "This changes nothing. The mare is still my property." "Perhaps," said Tomas, stepping forward. "But it shows you that Sophia isn't alone in believing some things are more important than property rights." Just then, Aurora emerged from the stable, drawn by the commotion. She moved with surprising grace despite her pregnant belly, her head held high. She came to stand beside Sophia, who placed a protective hand on her neck. "Look at her," Sophia said softly. "Look how she trusts me, how she comes to me for protection. Would she do the same with you, Don Valverde? Would she even let you touch her after what you did?" Valverde's eyes narrowed as he studied the mare. There was no denying that Aurora looked healthy and well cared for, her coat gleaming in the sunlight, her eyes clear and alert. The bond between the horse and the young woman was evident to everyone present. "I admit," he said finally, "that you've taken good care of her. But sentiment doesn't change facts. Aurora is still mine, and I intend to reclaim her." "And what will you do with her?" Sophia asked. "Use her for breeding until she's no longer valuable? Abandon her again if she doesn't meet your expectations? She deserves better than that." A tense silence fell over the gathering. Valverde's men shifted uncomfortably, while the villagers watched with wary determination. The confrontation had reached a critical point, with neither side willing to back down. "Let me make myself perfectly clear," Valverde said, his voice dangerously soft. "I will have my mare back one way or another. Your little display of rural solidarity is touching but futile. I have the law on my side, as well as resources you can't begin to imagine." Sophia met his gaze without flinching. "And I have the truth on mine. Everyone here knows what kind of man abandons a pregnant mare in the desert. Is that the reputation you want, Don Valverde? Is that the story you want people to tell about you?" For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Valverde's face. He was accustomed to using his wealth and power to get his way, but this situation was proving more complicated than he had anticipated. The public nature of the confrontation with so many witnesses made his usual tactics less effective. "Perhaps," he said after a moment, "we can reach a compromise. I'm willing to compensate you for your care of Aurora, a generous sum that would allow you to improve your situation." He gestured dismissively at the modest ranch around them. Sophia shook her head. "This isn't about money. It's about doing what's right. Aurora stays with me, at least until she gives birth and recovers. After that, if you can prove you'll treat her properly, we can discuss her future." Valverde's face darkened with anger. "You presume to dictate terms to me? Do you have any idea who I am, what power I hold in this region?" "I know exactly who you are," Sophia replied calmly. "The question is whether you know what kind of man you've become." A ripple of approval went through the gathered villagers. Valverde glanced around, suddenly aware that he was losing this public confrontation. His carefully cultivated image as a respected businessman and landowner was at risk of being tarnished by this stubborn young woman and her accusations. "This isn't over," he said finally, his voice cold with suppressed rage. "Not by a long shot." He turned to Hernan. "We're leaving, for now." As Valverde and his men returned to their vehicles, the tension in the air remained thick and heavy. Sophia knew this was only a temporary reprieve. Don Esteban Valverde was not a man who accepted defeat, and he would surely return with a new strategy to reclaim what he considered his property. But for today at least, Aurora was safe. The mare pressed her head against Sophia's shoulder as if understanding that a battle had been won, though the war was far from over. As the dust settled from Valverde's departure, a collective sigh of relief passed through the gathered villagers. Sophia felt her knees weaken, the tension that had kept her upright suddenly evaporating. Tomas was quickly at her side, his weathered hand steady on her shoulder. "You did well," he said quietly. "Not many would stand up to a man like Valverde." The villagers began to approach, each offering words of support or gentle pats on Aurora's neck. The mare, surprisingly calm despite the confrontation, accepted their attention with dignity, as if understanding these people were allies. Doña Clara stepped forward, her lined face creased with concern. "This isn't over, child. Men like Valverde don't forget slights. They don't forgive." "I know," Sophia replied, stroking Aurora's mane. "But what choice did I have? I couldn't let him take her." "No one's saying you should have," Raphael, the village blacksmith, interjected. "Just that you need to be prepared. Valverde won't give up so easily." As the crowd began to disperse, returning to their daily responsibilities, Tomas lingered. He watched as Sophia led Aurora back to the stable, the mare moving with the deliberate care of a creature heavy with child. "When is she due?" he asked, following them into the cool dimness of the stable. Sophia shook her head. "I'm not sure. The veterinarian from the next town over came last week. He thinks within the next 2 weeks, but he can't be certain." Tomas nodded thoughtfully. "That doesn't give us much time." "Time for what?" "To prepare. Valverde will return, Sophia, and next time he might not be so diplomatic." The reality of her situation settled over Sophia like a heavy blanket. She had won today's battle, but at what cost? She had made an enemy of the most powerful man in the region, a man known for getting what he wanted, regardless of who stood in his way. "What can I do?" she asked, her voice small in the stillness of the stable. Tomas considered for a moment. "We need to make sure you're not alone. I'll arrange for someone from the village to stay with you until the foal is born. After that..." He trailed off, not wanting to voice the uncertainty of what might come after. The following days passed in a strange, tense calm. True to his word, Tomas arranged a rotation of villagers to stay at Sophia's ranch. Sometimes it was the blacksmith's teenage son, other times one of the older women from the village who knew about horse births. Sophia was grateful for their presence, not just for the protection they offered, but for the knowledge they shared. Doña Clara, who had helped deliver countless foals over her long life, spent several afternoons teaching Sophia what to expect, how to recognize the signs of labor, what complications might arise. "The first sign will be restlessness," she explained, sitting on a stool in the stable while Sophia cleaned Aurora's stall. "She'll pace, lie down, get up again. When you see that, send for me immediately." Sophia nodded, absorbing every detail. The thought of Aurora going through labor filled her with both excitement and dread. What if something went wrong? What if the foal was too large or positioned incorrectly? The nearest veterinarian was hours away. As if sensing her anxiety, Aurora nudged Sophia's shoulder gently. The mare's eyes, deep and intelligent, seemed to communicate a wordless reassurance. "We'll be fine, trust me." Sophia wrapped her arms around Aurora's neck, breathing in the warm, earthy scent of her. "I do trust you," she whispered. "We'll get through this together." Meanwhile, in his luxurious estate, Don Esteban Valverde was strategizing. The public confrontation at Sophia's ranch had not gone as planned. He had expected to intimidate the girl with his presence, to simply take what was his and leave. Instead, he had been forced to retreat, outmaneuvered by a mere peasant and her village supporters. "It's a matter of timing," Hernan suggested as they sat in Valverde's study. "Once the foal is born, we can move in. The girl won't be able to protect both the mare and the foal." Valverde swirled the brandy in his glass, his expression cold. I don't like waiting. That mare and her foal represent a significant investment. Yes, sir, but patience might be wise in this case. The girl has the village behind her. Any forceful action now would only damage your reputation further. Valverde's jaw clenched. He was unaccustomed to being thwarted, especially by someone of Sofia's status. But Hernan had a point. His reputation was valuable, particularly with several business deals pending that required the goodwill of local officials. Fine, he said finally. We wait, but I want to know immediately when the foal is born, and I want men watching that ranch day and night. Of course, sir, I'll arrange it. As the days passed, Aurora's belly grew larger, her movements more deliberate. Sofia spent every possible moment with her, talking softly, brushing her coat, preparing the stable for the impending birth. Luna and Bruno, sensing the importance of what was to come, stayed close as well, with Luna often sleeping outside the stable door like a guardian. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in deepening shades of purple, Sofia sat on the small porch of her house, mending a tear in one of her dresses. The air was warm and fragrant with the scent of wildflowers that grew in patches around the ranch. From where she sat, she could see the stable door and the corral beyond, where Aurora grazed peacefully. The mare's silhouette against the sunset was a picture of serene beauty that made Sofia's heart ache with a mixture of love and worry. Despite the constant presence of friends from the village, she couldn't shake the feeling that danger was approaching. Valverde's men had been spotted on the hills overlooking the ranch several times, watching, waiting. Tomas appeared at the edge of the property, his mule cart laden with supplies. Sofia set aside her mending and went to help him unload. More feed for Aurora, he explained, handing down a sack, and some extra blankets for the foal. Elena wove them specially. Sofia felt a lump form in her throat at the generosity of her neighbors. I don't know how to thank you all. Tomas waved away her gratitude. No need. Your father would have done the same for any of us. He hesitated, then added, There's news from the village. Valverde has been asking questions about you. Sofia tensed. What kind of questions? About your father, your family, whether you have any debts, any legal troubles. Tomas's expression was grave. He's looking for leverage, Sofia. A way to force your hand without seeming the villain. A cold dread settled in Sofia's stomach. He won't find anything. My father left everything in order. The ranch is paid for, the taxes current. Good, but be careful. Men like Valverde always find a way to get what they want. After Tomas left, Sofia walked out to the corral where Aurora was enjoying the last light of day. The mare came to her immediately, nuzzling her hand in search of treats. Sofia produced an apple from her pocket, offering it on her palm. Things are going to get harder before they get easier, she told Aurora, as the mare crunched the apple. But I promise you this, whatever happens, I'll protect you and your foal, no matter what it takes. Aurora lifted her head, apple juice dripping from her lips, and gazed at Sofia with those deep, trusting eyes. In that moment, Sofia knew that her promise was more than just words. It was a vow sealed in the quiet understanding between a woman and the horse who had come to mean everything to her. The night Aurora went into labor was unseasonably cool, with a full moon hanging like a silver lantern in the sky. Sofia had been restless all evening, sensing something was different. She had checked on the mare repeatedly, noticing subtle changes in her behavior. The way Aurora kept shifting her weight, the flicker of discomfort in her eyes. Shortly before midnight, Sofia heard a soft, distressed whinny from the stable. She was out of bed in an instant, pulling on her boots and grabbing the oil lamp that stood ready by the door. Luna followed at her heels as she hurried across the yard, the cool night air raising goosebumps on her arms. Aurora was pacing in her stall, stopping occasionally to paw at the ground or look back at her swollen sides. When she saw Sophia, she nickered softly, almost a sigh of relief. "It's time, isn't it?" Sophia whispered, setting the lamp on a hook and approaching the mare. Aurora pressed her head against Sophia's chest, seeking comfort. "It's all right, girl. I'm here now." Sophia had prepared for this moment, mentally rehearsing the instructions Doña Clara had given her. First, ensure the mare had enough space. She quickly removed unnecessary items from the stall, spreading fresh straw over the floor. Next, check for signs that the birth was progressing normally. Aurora lay down, then got up again, clearly uncomfortable. Sophia knew she should send for Doña Clara, but she hesitated to leave Aurora alone, even for the few minutes it would take to reach the bell they had installed at the edge of the property specifically for this purpose. "I'll be right back," she promised, stroking Aurora's neck. "Just hold on." Sophia ran to the bell, Luna racing ahead of her. She rang it 3 times, the signal they had arranged to indicate the foal was coming. The sound echoed across the silent valley, and Sophia prayed it would reach the ears of those waiting to help. By the time she returned to the stable, Aurora had lain down again, her sides heaving with contractions. Sophia knelt beside her, murmuring encouragement, wiping the sweat from the mare's neck with a damp cloth. Aurora's eyes were wide with pain and fear, but they never left Sophia's face. "You're doing so well," Sophia told her. "So brave. Your foal will be here soon." The minutes stretched into hours. Sophia remained by Aurora's side, offering comfort and encouragement. When the mare's water finally broke, Sophia felt a surge of both relief and anxiety. Now the real work would begin. Just as the first signs of the foal began to appear, tiny hooves emerging, Sophia heard the sound of approaching footsteps. Doña Clara appeared in the stable doorway, her gray hair disheveled from sleep, but her eyes alert and focused. "Good," she said, assessing the situation with a glance. "The foal is positioned correctly. Let nature take its course now." Together, they watched as Aurora strained and pushed, her entire body tensing with the effort. Sophia held her breath as, bit by bit, the foal emerged. First the forelegs, then the head, and finally, with one mighty push from Aurora, the rest of its body slid into the world in a rush of fluid and membrane. "A filly," Doña Clara exclaimed, her voice warm with pleasure, "and a beautiful one at that." The newborn foal lay motionless for a moment, and Sophia felt her heart freeze. But then Aurora turned her head, nickering softly to her baby, and as if responding to her mother's call, the little filly twitched, her chest expanding with her first breath. "She's breathing," Sophia whispered, tears of relief streaming down her face. Doña Clara nodded, her weathered face creased in a smile. "Of course she is. She's her mother's daughter, strong and determined." The next hour passed in a blur as they helped Aurora deliver the afterbirth and ensured both mother and foal were healthy. The little filly, still damp and wobbly, soon attempted to stand, collapsing several times before finally managing to balance on her spindly legs. Her coat, now beginning to dry, revealed a warm chestnut color similar to her mother's, with a perfect white star on her forehead. "What will you name her?" Doña Clara asked, as they watched the foal take her first tentative steps toward Aurora's milk-swollen udder. Sophia hadn't planned a name, expecting to know the right one when she saw the foal. Now, watching the newborn's determined efforts, the way she kept trying despite each fall, Sophia knew. "Esperanza," she said softly. "It means hope." Doña Clara nodded approvingly. A good name, strong, like her. By dawn, news of Esperanza's birth had spread through the village. Throughout the morning, neighbors arrived bearing gifts. A hand-carved wooden horse from Raphael, a small blanket embroidered with the filly's name from Elena, fresh vegetables and bread for Sophia. Each visitor marveled at the newborn, commenting on her strong legs, her alert eyes, her perfectly shaped head. "She'll be a beauty," Tomas predicted, watching as Esperanza nursed, just like her mother. Sofia couldn't stop smiling, exhausted though she was from the long night. The sight of Aurora with her foal, the gentle way the mare nuzzled her baby, the protective stance she took whenever someone approached, it filled Sofia's heart with a joy she hadn't known was possible. But beneath the joy lurked a shadow of anxiety. Valverde would have heard of the birth by now. His men, who had been watching the ranch from a distance, would have reported back. How long before he made his move? As if reading her thoughts, Tomas drew her aside. "We need to be ready," he said quietly. "Valverde won't wait long now." Sofia nodded, her happiness dimming slightly. "What should we do?" "I've arranged for people from the village to stay here in shifts, 2 or 3 at a time. Never leave Aurora and the foal alone, not even for a minute." "Do you think he'd really try to take them by force?" Sofia asked, though she already knew the answer. Tomas's expression was grim. "I wouldn't put anything past a man like Valverde when his pride is wounded." That afternoon, as Sofia sat in the stable watching Aurora and Esperanza rest, she heard the sound of a car approaching. Her heart raced as she peered out the stable door, expecting to see Valverde's sleek black automobile. Instead, a dusty pickup truck came into view, driven by a man she didn't recognize. The stranger parked and approached the house, removing his hat as he walked. He was middle-aged, with kind eyes and a serious expression. Rafael, who had been working nearby, intercepted him. Sofia couldn't hear their conversation, but after a few minutes, Rafael led the man toward the stable. Sofia stepped outside to meet them, her posture instinctively protective. "Sofia, this is Señor Jimenez," Rafael introduced. "He's a lawyer from the city." The man extended his hand. "Miss Martinez, I've heard about your situation with Don Valverde and his mare. I'd like to offer my services." Sofia's surprise must have shown on her face because the lawyer smiled slightly. "Pro bono, of course. I have personal reasons for wanting to see Valverde face a challenge he can't simply buy his way out of." "Why would you help me?" Sofia asked, cautious despite her desperate need for an ally with legal knowledge. Jimenez's smile faded, replaced by a look of old pain. "Let's just say I've seen what happens when men like Valverde use their power without conscience. If there's a chance to stop him this time, I want to help." Sofia glanced at Rafael, who nodded encouragingly. "We checked him out, Sofia. He's legitimate and he's won cases against wealthy landowners before." For the first time since Valverde's visit, Sofia felt a flicker of hope that extended beyond mere defiance. With the village behind her, and now a lawyer willing to fight for her cause, perhaps she could do more than just temporarily protect Aurora and Esperanza. Perhaps she could secure their future. "Please come in," she said, gesturing toward the stable. "There's someone I'd like you to meet." Señor Jimenez stood in silent appreciation as he observed Aurora gently nuzzling her foal. Esperanza, now 3 days old, was already showing remarkable strength and curiosity, exploring her surroundings with wobbly but increasingly confident steps. "They're magnificent," the lawyer said finally. "I can see why you're fighting so hard to protect them." Sofia nodded, her hand resting protectively on Aurora's neck. "Do you think we have a chance? Legally, I mean." Jimenez considered the question carefully. They had moved to Sofia's small kitchen table where he'd spread out several legal documents, making notes as Sofia recounted the entire story, from finding Aurora abandoned and injured to Valverde's confrontation and threats. "Technically, the law is on Valverde's side," he admitted. "The mare bears his brand and he can produce papers proving ownership." Sofia's heart sank, but Jimenez held up a hand before she could speak. "However, there's a legal concept called abandonment. If we can prove that Valverde intentionally abandoned Aurora in her pregnant state, he may have forfeited his ownership rights. But how can we prove that? Sophia asked. It's his word against mine, and in this region his word carries more weight. Jimenez smiled, a determined glint in his eye. That's where investigation comes in. No man like Valverde acts entirely alone. Someone drove the truck that transported Aurora to that creek. Someone gave the order. And people talk, especially when they've been treated poorly. Hope flickered in Sophia's chest. So you'll help us? I will, Jimenez confirmed. But you should understand this won't be easy. Valverde has resources, connections, influence. He'll fight dirty if he has to. So will we, Sophia replied with quiet determination. Only our version of dirty is simply telling the truth. Over the next few days, Jimenez became a regular presence at the ranch. He took statements from Sophia and everyone who had been involved in Aurora's rescue and care. He collected evidence of her condition when found, including photographs that Doña Clara had wisely taken to document the mare's injuries and malnourishment. Meanwhile, Esperanza grew stronger by the day. Her legs, once wobbling and uncertain, now carried her in playful circles around her mother. Her personality emerged, curious, stubborn, affectionate. She would come to Sophia readily, nuzzling her hands for treats, allowing herself to be stroked and admired. Sophia spent every moment she could with the foal and her mother, marveling at the bond between them. Aurora was a patient, attentive mother, watchful and protective. When Esperanza strayed too far, a soft nicker would bring the foal racing back to her side. She's going to be faster than her mother, Tomas observed one evening as they watched Esperanza galloping in small, energetic bursts around the corral. Look at that stride. Sophia smiled, but her happiness was tinged with anxiety. Valverde had been ominously silent since Esperanza's birth. His men still watched the ranch from a distance, but there had been no direct confrontation, no further threats. The silence felt dangerous, like the calm before a storm. Jimenez shared her concern. He's planning something, the lawyer said when he visited a week after Esperanza's birth. My sources tell me he's been meeting with local officials, judges. He's trying to build a legal case against you. What kind of case? Sophia asked, fear creeping into her voice. He might claim you stole Aurora, knowing full well she was his property, or he could try to challenge your ownership of this land, find some technicality in your father's will or the property records. Sophia's hands trembled slightly as she poured coffee for them both. Can he do that? He can try, Jimenez replied grimly. But we're not without resources ourselves. I've been doing some digging into Valverde's business practices. He's not as untouchable as he thinks. That evening, after Jimenez had left, Sophia sat on the porch steps watching as Aurora and Esperanza grazed peacefully in the last light of day. Luna lay at her feet, the dog's ears occasionally pricking up at distant sounds before settling again. The tranquil scene belied the tension that seemed to hang in the air. Sophia was so lost in thought that she nearly missed the dust cloud rising from the road, signaling an approaching vehicle. She stood quickly, anxiety spiking as she recognized the sleek contours of Valverde's car. This time he came alone. No entourage, no show of force. Just a single man, stepping out of his expensive car with the confidence of someone who believed the world would bend to his will. Sophia stood her ground at the bottom of the porch steps, Luna rising to stand beside her, hackles slightly raised. "Good evening, Miss Martinez," Valverde said, his tone almost cordial. "I thought it was time we spoke again, now that circumstances have changed." "Nothing has changed," Sophia replied, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Aurora and Esperanza belong here." Valverde smiled, though the expression didn't reach his eyes. "Ah, so you've named the foal. How charming." He took a step closer, and Luna growled softly. "I've come to make you a final offer, one that I believe is quite generous." Sophia remained silent, wary of his sudden reasonableness. "I'm prepared to pay you a substantial sum for both the mare and the foal," Valverde continued. "Enough for you to buy a larger property, better equipment. You could establish that animal sanctuary you dream of." Sophia's eyes widened slightly. How did he know about her dream? Valverde noticed her surprise and his smile widened. "I make it my business to know things, Miss Martinez, especially about people who, interest me." "They're not for sale," Sophia said firmly. "No amount of money would make me hand them over to someone who abandoned Aurora to die." Valverde's facade of geniality slipped, revealing a flash of the cold anger beneath. "You're making a mistake. I've tried to be reasonable, to resolve this quietly, but my patience has limits." "So does mine," Sophia retorted. "I've retained legal counsel, Don Valverde. Any further threats or attempts to take Aurora and Esperanza will be met with legal action." For a moment, genuine surprise crossed Valverde's face, quickly replaced by amusement. "Legal action? Against me?" He laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "You're more naive than I thought." "Perhaps," Sophia acknowledged, "but I'm also more determined than you realize." Valverde studied her for a long moment, his expression calculating. "You know," he said finally, "in different circumstances, I might admire your spirit, but in this case it's simply an inconvenience." He turned to leave, then paused, looking back at her. "You should know that I always get what I want, Miss Martinez, one way or another. Consider that before you reject my offer." With that, he returned to his car and drove away, leaving Sophia standing in a cloud of dust, her heart pounding. She waited until his car had disappeared from view before allowing her shoulders to slump. The confrontation had left her shaking, though she had managed to maintain her composure while Valverde was present. A soft nicker drew her attention. Aurora had approached the fence, watching her with those intelligent, concerned eyes. Esperanza frolicked nearby, blissfully unaware of the danger threatening her future. Sophia walked to the fence, reaching out to stroke Aurora's velvet muzzle. "Don't worry," she whispered. "He won't take you. I won't let him." But as the twilight deepened around them, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that Valverde's visit had been more than an attempt at negotiation. It had been a warning, a prelude to something worse to come. The morning after Valverde's visit, Sophia woke to find Jimenez already waiting on her porch, his expression grave. She knew immediately that something was wrong. "He's filed a lawsuit," the lawyer said without preamble, claiming theft of valuable property and seeking immediate repossession of both Aurora and the foal. Sophia's hands clenched into fists. "He can't do that." "He can, and he has," Jimenez replied, his voice gentle but firm. "He's also managed to get Judge Mendoza assigned to the case, a man known to be sympathetic to wealthy landowners." "So we've already lost?" Sophia asked, trying to keep the despair from her voice. Jimenez shook his head. "Not yet. I've filed a counterclaim based on abandonment and animal cruelty, and I've been working on something else, something that might change everything." He hesitated, then added, "But I need more time." "How much time?" "A week, maybe 2. The hearing is scheduled for next Friday." Sophia nodded, determination replacing her initial fear. "Then we'll buy you that time." The days that followed took on a surreal quality. On the surface, life continued as normal. Sophia tended to Aurora and Esperanza, worked in her vegetable garden, and sold eggs and milk at the village market. But beneath this routine lay a constant current of tension. Villagers continued to take shifts at the ranch, ensuring Sophia was never alone. Tomas reinforced the stable doors and corral gates. Raphael fashioned additional locks that would make it difficult for anyone to quickly remove the horses. Even Luna seemed to sense the gravity of the situation. remaining unusually vigilant, her eyes constantly scanning the horizon for potential threats. Esperanza, blissfully unaware of the human drama surrounding her, continued to flourish. Now 3 weeks old, she had grown noticeably taller, her legs longer and stronger, her chestnut coat developing a beautiful sheen that caught the sunlight. Her personality was emerging more each day, playful and curious, with a streak of independence that sometimes tested Aurora's patience. "She has your spirit," Doña Clara observed one afternoon as they watched Esperanza determinedly investigating a butterfly that had landed on a fence post. "Fearless and stubborn," Sophia smiled. "Let's hope that serves her well." As the date of the hearing approached, Jimenez spent increasingly long hours at the ranch, preparing Sophia for what to expect in court. "Valverde's lawyers will try to portray you as a thief, someone who found valuable property and decided to keep it for personal gain," he warned. "They'll downplay Aurora's condition when you found her, possibly even suggesting that any injuries were the result of your care, not neglect." Sophia's indignation flared. "That's ridiculous. Anyone who saw her that day knows she was abandoned and suffering. And that's exactly what we'll argue," Jimenez assured her. "But be prepared for a fight. Valverde won't pull any punches." 2 days before the hearing, Sophia received an unexpected visitor. A thin, nervous man in his 40s arrived at the ranch in a battered truck, refusing to give his name to Rafael, who had been helping repair a fence. "I need to speak with the señorita directly," the man insisted. "It's about the horses." Sophia approached cautiously, Luna at her heels. "I'm Sofia Martinez. Who are you?" The man glanced around anxiously before answering. "My name is Miguel. I used to work for Don Valverde. I was one of the men who drove Aurora to the creek that night." Sophia's breath caught. "You abandoned her?" Miguel looked down, shame evident in his posture. "Yes. We were ordered to get rid of her. Don Valverde said she was useless now that she couldn't race." He swallowed hard. "I've regretted it every day since." "Why are you here now?" Sophia asked, her voice carefully neutral. "I heard about the court case. I want to help. I can testify about what really happened, that it was Don Valverde who ordered us to abandon Aurora." Hope surged through Sophia. This could be exactly what they needed: first-hand testimony of Valverde's cruelty and deliberate abandonment. "We need to contact Señor Jimenez immediately," she said, turning toward the house. But before they could reach the porch, the sound of approaching vehicles made them both freeze. 3 black cars came speeding down the road toward the ranch, dust billowing behind them. "He must have followed me," Miguel whispered, his face pale with fear. "I was careful, but—" Sophia acted quickly. "Go inside with Rafael. Don't come out until I call for you." As the cars screeched to a halt in front of the house, Valverde emerged from the first vehicle, his face contorted with rage. Hernan and 4 other men exited the other cars, their expressions grim. "Where is he?" Valverde demanded, storming toward Sophia. "Where is Miguel?" Sophia stood her ground. "I don't know who you're talking about." "Don't play games with me, girl," Valverde snarled. "One of my workers was seen driving in this direction, a man who suddenly resigned yesterday after years of loyal service." "This is private property," Sophia replied. "You're trespassing." Valverde laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "Trespassing? This will be the least of your concerns when I'm finished with you." He turned to his men. "Search the house, find Miguel." "You have no right," Sophia protested, stepping in front of Valverde as Hernan and 2 others moved toward the house. "Get out of the way," Valverde warned, his voice dangerously low. When Sophia refused to move, Valverde nodded to one of his men, who roughly grabbed her arm, pushing her aside. Luna lunged forward, teeth bared, but another man kicked the dog, sending her yelping in pain. "Luna!" Sophia cried, breaking free to rush to her injured pet. The commotion drew Aurora and Esperanza to the edge of the corral. The mare whinnied loudly, distressed by the scene unfolding before her. Esperanza, sensing her mother's anxiety, pressed close to Aurora's side. Valverde's attention shifted to the horses. "Since I'm here," he said coldly, "I might as well take what's mine. The court hearing is a mere formality anyway." "You can't," Sophia protested, rising from where she knelt beside Luna. "The case hasn't been decided yet." "I'm merely reclaiming stolen property," Valverde replied smoothly. "Hernan, prepare the trailer. We're taking both horses now." Panic surged through Sophia. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not when they were so close to having the evidence they needed. She looked around desperately for help, but Rafael was inside with Miguel, and the other villagers who had been helping weren't due to arrive for hours. As Hernan and another man approached the corral, Aurora backed away, pushing Esperanza behind her protectively. The foal, confused and frightened, whinnied shrilly. Something in that sound, the pure fear and vulnerability, snapped something in Sophia. Without thinking of the consequences, she ran to place herself between Valverde's men and the corral gate. "You'll have to go through me first," she declared, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Valverde sighed, as if dealing with a tiresome child. "This is becoming tedious. Remove her," he ordered his men. As rough hands reached for her, Sophia heard the distant sound of vehicles approaching. Looking past Valverde, she saw a cloud of dust rising on the road, multiple vehicles moving quickly toward the ranch. Tomas was in the lead truck, with Jimenez beside him. Behind them came at least a dozen other vehicles filled with villagers. But what caught Sophia's attention was the final car, a police cruiser with lights flashing. Valverde turned at the sound of approaching vehicles, his expression shifting from anger to disbelief as he saw the procession heading toward the ranch. His men froze, uncertain what to do as the first truck skidded to a halt in the yard. Tomas leapt out, followed closely by Jimenez and the village blacksmith. The police car pulled up behind them, and a stern-faced officer emerged, surveying the scene with practiced eyes. "What's going on here?" the officer demanded, his hand resting casually on his holster. Valverde quickly composed himself, smoothing his expression into one of righteous indignation. "Officer Morales, I'm glad you're here. This woman has stolen valuable property belonging to me, a mare and her foal. I've simply come to reclaim what's mine." "That's not true," Sophia protested. "He abandoned Aurora when she was pregnant and injured. I found her half dead by the creek and nursed her back to health." Officer Morales looked between them, his expression unreadable. "There's a legal dispute over ownership, is that correct?" "Yes." Jimenez stepped forward, introducing himself. "I represent Miss Martinez. A hearing is scheduled for Friday to determine rightful ownership. Don Valverde is attempting to circumvent the legal process by taking the horses by force." The officer frowned. "Is this true, Don Valverde?" "I'm merely retrieving stolen property," Valverde insisted. "The court case is a formality." "Nevertheless," Officer Morales said firmly, "until the court makes its determination, the animals should remain where they are. You can't take the law into your own hands, even if you believe you're in the right." Valverde's face darkened with suppressed rage. "Do you know who I am, officer?" "I know exactly who you are, Don Valverde," the officer replied evenly, "and I know my duty. Now I must ask you and your men to leave this property immediately." For a moment it seemed Valverde might refuse. Then with a cold smile he nodded to his men. "Very well. We'll let the courts handle this matter." He turned to Sophia. "Enjoy your last few days with those horses, girl. Come Friday, they'll be mine again." As Valverde and his men returned to their vehicles, Sophia released the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Luna limped to her side, and she knelt to check the dog's injury. Thankfully, just a bruise, not a broken bone. "Are you all right?" Tomas asked, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. Sofia nodded, though she was trembling slightly from the adrenaline. How did you know to come? Miguel managed to call me before he arrived here, Jimenez explained. When he told me who he was and why he was coming, I gathered as many supporters as I could. I had a feeling Valverde might follow him. Sofia glanced toward the house. Miguel! He's inside with Rafael. Jimenez's face lit up. Then let's talk to him immediately. His testimony could change everything. Over the next 2 days, Jimenez worked tirelessly preparing their case. Miguel's first-hand account of Valverde's order to abandon Aurora provided the critical evidence they needed. Additionally, the lawyer had uncovered a pattern of similar behavior. Other animals discarded when they no longer served Valverde's purposes. Workers mistreated when they questioned his methods. It's not just about Aurora anymore, Jimenez explained to Sofia on the eve of the hearing. We're exposing a history of cruelty and disregard for both animals and people. When the day of the hearing arrived, it seemed the entire village had turned out to support Sofia. The small courtroom was packed, with people standing along the walls and spilling out into the hallway. Judge Mendoza, a thin man with spectacles and a reputation for favoring the wealthy, appeared visibly uncomfortable with the public attention the case had attracted. Local newspaper reporters sat in the front row, pencils poised to record every detail. Valverde arrived with a team of 3 expensive lawyers, his confident smirk suggesting he still believed the outcome was predetermined in his favor. He barely glanced at Sofia as he took his seat. The proceedings began with Valverde's lead attorney presenting their case, a straightforward claim of ownership, complete with registration papers and breeding records proving Aurora's value and Valverde's legal right to her. Miss Martinez knowingly kept an animal that bore my client's brand, the lawyer concluded smoothly. The law is clear on this matter. The mare and her foal should be returned to Don Valverde immediately, with compensation for their use during the time they were wrongfully kept from him. When it was Jimenez's turn, he approached the bench with quiet confidence. Your Honor, we don't dispute that Aurora originally belonged to Don Valverde. What we contend is that he forfeited his rights to her through the deliberate act of abandonment, an abandonment that nearly resulted in the death of both the mare and her unborn foal. He then called his witnesses, first Sofia, who recounted finding Aurora near death, the weeks of careful nursing that followed, and the birth of Esperanza. Her testimony was heartfelt and honest, drawing sympathetic murmurs from the spectators. Next came Doña Clara and others from the village who had seen Aurora's condition when Sofia first brought her home. They described the mare's injuries, her malnourishment, the fear in her eyes. But it was Miguel's testimony that changed the atmosphere in the courtroom. In a voice that gained strength as he spoke, he detailed Valverde's callous order to dispose of the pregnant mare because she could no longer race. He said, "That horse is useless to me now. Get rid of it. I don't care how or where. Just make sure it's far enough away that it won't find its way back," Miguel recalled. "We took her to the creek and left her there. I knew she wouldn't survive long in that condition, especially being pregnant. I've regretted that night ever since." A hush fell over the courtroom. Judge Mendoza's expression had grown increasingly troubled as the evidence mounted. Even some of Valverde's lawyers looked uncomfortable. Valverde himself sat rigid with fury, his face flushed as his carefully constructed image crumbled under Miguel's damning testimony. After both sides presented their closing arguments, Judge Mendoza retired to consider his verdict. The wait seemed interminable, with Sofia alternating between hope and dread. When the judge finally returned, the courtroom fell silent. "In the matter of Valverde versus Martinez," he began, his voice formal, "I find that the deliberate abandonment of the mare known as Aurora constitutes forfeiture of ownership rights. Furthermore, the evidence of cruelty and neglect is deeply disturbing. Sophia's heart soared as the judge continued. Ownership of both Aurora and her foal Esperanza is hereby granted to Sofia Martinez. Additionally, Don Esteban Valverde is ordered to pay a fine for animal cruelty, and I am referring this case to the district prosecutor for potential criminal charges. The courtroom erupted in cheers. Sofia found herself embraced by Tomas, Doña Clara, and others from the village. Through tears of joy, she saw Valverde storming out, his carefully constructed world of privilege and impunity beginning to crumble. In the weeks that followed, Sofia's life transformed. News of her victory spread, inspiring others to come forward with their own stories of Valverde's misdeeds. The investigation into his business practices revealed tax evasion and labor violations, further damaging his once untouchable reputation. As for Aurora and Esperanza, they thrived in their home with Sofia. The foal grew stronger each day, her personality blossoming into a perfect blend of her mother's gentle nature and a spirited independence all her own. One sunny morning, as Sofia watched Aurora and Esperanza galloping freely across the pasture, Jimenez arrived with unexpected news. The prosecutor has frozen some of Valverde's assets pending the outcome of the criminal investigation, he explained. And there's something else. As part of a preliminary settlement to avoid more serious charges, Valverde has agreed to donate a significant portion of his land, the parcel adjoining your property. Sofia stared at him in disbelief. What? Jimenez smiled. It seems your dream of an animal sanctuary might come true sooner than you thought. As the lawyer spread out maps on her kitchen table, Sofia glanced out the window at Aurora and Esperanza. The mare had stopped running and was watching the house, as if she somehow understood that their future was being discussed. Sofia smiled, her heart full. What had begun as a simple act of compassion for an abandoned horse had become something much larger. Justice, redemption, and the promise of a sanctuary where no animal would ever be abandoned again.